You walked outside this morning to fill the feeder, the same way you do most mornings. You weren't thinking about the birds watching you. You were thinking about coffee, or whatever came before coffee. But while you were out there, a black-capped chickadee landed on the branch 3 feet from your shoulder, looked directly at your face for 2 full seconds, then went back to the seeds. You probably didn't register it as anything more than a nice moment, a chickadee being a chickadee, but that bird was doing something. And the 7 things I'm about to walk you through will show you that what happened this morning and what happens in your yard every single day is something most people never get close to understanding. The birds in your yard are not just passing through, they are paying attention. And the specific things they're paying attention to aren't random. They are tracking you across 7 categories of information, building a picture of who you are with a level of precision that should stop you cold. Some of it is about safety, some of it is about food, some of it is about something that researchers are still working out how to fully explain, which is the relationship between a specific human and the wild birds that choose over and over to stay near that person. By the time you get to number 5, you will look at your own yard differently than you ever have. And number 7 is the one that people remember. If this is already making you look at the birds outside differently, hit the like button and subscribe, it really helps. And drop a comment telling me which birds visit your yard most often. I love knowing who I'm talking to. Stand outside your back door sometime and do something you almost never do. Be still, no phone, no task, no reason you're out there except to stand. Within 60 seconds, you will feel the difference in how the yard responds to you. Ground-feeding birds like American robins and dark-eyed juncos may not flush. A white-breasted nuthatch on the feeder post might not even pause. The yard continues. And the reason it continues, the reason those birds do not treat your presence as an alarm event, is that they already know you. They have been cataloging you for weeks, possibly months. The information they've been storing goes far beyond what you'd expect. Most people, when they think about birds noticing them, assume it's fairly simple. Bird sees large mammal, decides mammal is not a threat, returns to food. That's the casual version of what most of us believe is happening. And there's a reason we believe it. It feels complete. It explains the behavior we see without requiring anything too complicated of the animal doing the watching. The reality is considerably more specific. Researchers at the University of Washington spent years studying American crows near a suburban campus. They trapped and banded birds while wearing a specific rubber mask, a caveman face that became the dangerous face in their study. Then they walked the same area wearing that mask, a neutral mask or no mask at all. The crows didn't just recognize the dangerous face. They remembered it across years. They taught it to their offspring, who had never been trapped at all. Young crows born after the trapping experiments were scolding the dangerous face without any personal history with it. The identification of a specific human had moved through the crow population the way information moves through a community, across individuals, across generations. What this tells us about the birds in your yard specifically is something that lands harder the longer you sit with it. They are not just watching you, they are keeping a file. A northern cardinal sitting in the viburnum 10 feet from your kitchen window is not a decoration. It is an animal with a detailed running assessment of the person who keeps appearing on the other side of that glass. The question that most people have never thought to ask is, what is it assessing? What specific things is that bird noticing about you every single day? The answer starts with the most obvious thing and works its way toward the most surprising. Your movement is the first thing they log. Every time you walk outside, birds clock the pace of it, the direction, the predictability. A person who moves through a yard with erratic speed, changing direction without pattern, lunging at feeders or gesturing unpredictably, registers very differently than a person who walks the same path, at a consistent pace, and handles the feeder with the same 2 or 3 familiar gestures. Birds don't process this as threatening or safe in one visit. They build a model over time. The model gets refined with every appearance you make. A mourning dove on the ground below your feeder has cataloged your walking speed. A house finch at the Nigersock has a strong opinion about whether you stop near it or keep moving past it. They have made assessments based on days or weeks of watching the same body move through the same space. What feels automatic to you, the quick stride to refill the feeder, the abrupt stop to look at something across the yard, is data. It has been collected, compared against previous visits, and filed. Most people are completely unaware of this, and that's not a failure. Nobody tells you. You go outside to take care of the feeder because you like the birds, and you do not walk out there thinking that a tufted titmouse is running a regression on your movement patterns, but it is in the only way a tufted titmouse can. And the downstream effect of that, whether it files you under calm and predictable or unpredictable and unresolved, shapes everything about which birds claim your yard and how close they'll eventually let you get. Your eyes are the second thing, and this one surprises people every time. Direct eye contact is one of the most loaded signals in the animal kingdom. For most prey species, a predator that is looking straight at them is a predator that has selected them. The gaze itself carries threat. So when you walk outside and look directly at the birds on your feeder, you are, from a deep evolutionary standpoint, doing something that resembles predatory targeting. And birds know it. What researchers have found is that birds can distinguish between a person looking at them and a person looking past them, even at distances that seem too far for that kind of discrimination. A study published in Biology Letters tested European starlings and found they adjusted their flight initiation distance based not just on how close a person was, but on whether that person was oriented toward them and making direct eye contact. The birds weren't measuring proximity alone. They were reading gaze direction as its own variable. That finding has since been replicated across multiple species. Your eyes, specifically where they are pointed, are a piece of information that every bird in your yard is processing every time you step outside. This is why the approach that feels most natural to us, walking straight toward the feeder, eyes forward, fixed on whatever bird is sitting there, is precisely the approach that causes birds to flush. You are doing the thing a hawk does before it commits to a strike. The birds don't know you mean well. They know what a direct, forward-oriented gaze from a large animal has historically meant for them. The adjustment is small, and the results are disproportionate to the effort. Walk toward the feeder at an angle. Let your gaze drift to the side of the bird rather than landing on it. If you want to observe a bird closely, use peripheral vision and keep your face turned slightly away. Bird banders and field researchers learn this early. The body language of non-threat is a skill, and the birds respond to it faster than most people expect. A northern cardinal that flushes every time you come within 15 feet will, over the course of a few weeks of this adjusted approach, begin to hold its ground at 12, then 10, then 8. The file they're keeping on you is getting updated. The model is changing. Your clothing is the third thing, and this tends to be the detail that genuinely startles people. Birds see color. That sentence alone is more significant than most people realize, because birds don't just see color. They see it in 4 channels to our 3, extending into the ultraviolet range entirely invisible to human eyes. What looks like a plain white t-shirt to you may appear strikingly bright in the UV spectrum, producing a visual signature that reads as conspicuous or unusual depending on the context. American goldfinches, for example, have UV-reflective plumage that plays a role in mate selection, a signal invisible to human observers but unmistakable to other goldfinches. The same sensitivity that lets them see each other is the sensitivity that registers you. This doesn't mean you need a birding wardrobe. What it means is that sudden changes in your appearance register as novelty, and novelty triggers a reassessment. The birds that have grown comfortable with your usual routine, the dark jacket you wear on cool mornings, the pale shirt that appears in the afternoon, will pause and recalibrate when you walk out in something they haven't seen before. A bird that has built a stable model of you will update that model when the input changes. House sparrows and American robins that are otherwise completely unbothered by your presence may pull back for a day or two when something about your visual profile changes significantly. They are not ignoring you. They are resolving the discrepancy. If you've ever noticed that your yard birds seem shyer on a particular day for no obvious reason, check what you're wearing. It's a less dramatic explanation than most people expect, and for that reason it's usually more accurate. The sound of your voice is the fourth thing. And the science behind this one is something that changes how people think about talking to the birds in their yard. Researchers studying American crows in urban environments found that crows could not only identify individual humans by face, but responded differentially to the same person based on whether that person was behaving calmly or excitedly. Loud, unpredictable vocalization, shouting, animated phone conversations, sudden laughter produced a measurable increase in alarm behavior in crows that were otherwise habituated to that person. Calm, low, consistent vocal tones produced no such response, even at relatively close range. The crows were using the acoustic character of the human's voice as an additional data channel alongside visual information. Smaller songbirds show a similar pattern. Song sparrows and house wrens that have grown comfortable near a person who moves quietly will respond to that same person's raised voice as a potential alarm stimulus. The yard goes a degree quieter. A few birds shift position. The comfortable dynamic you've built takes a small step backward. This is temporary, and it resolves quickly, but it tells you something important. The birds in your yard are not just recognizing you visually, they are assembling a full sensory profile of who you are and how you behave, and they are sensitive to variations in all of it. Talking to your birds in a low, calm, consistent tone is not eccentric. Researchers observing long-term human-bird relationships in suburban environments have noted that people who vocalize softly and regularly near feeding stations tend to have birds that habituate to close proximity faster than people who are silent but unpredictable. The sound of your voice, repeated in the same calm register across days and weeks, becomes part of what safe means to them. Your consistency is the fifth thing, and this is the one that builds or breaks everything else. The birds that return to your yard are not returning randomly. They are returning to a location that has been confirmed, visit after visit, as reliable. Food is where you said it would be. The human appears at roughly the same times. The yard doesn't produce surprises that cost the bird energy to process and recover from. Feeder site fidelity, the documented tendency of birds to return to specific feeding locations season after season, year after year, is not just about food, it is about the whole system. The food, the cover, the water, and the behavioral profile of the human who maintains it. A study tracking black-capped chickadee return rates at winter feeding stations found that stations with consistent maintenance and minimal disturbance had significantly higher rates of individually marked birds returning across seasons than stations with irregular feeding schedules. What this means practically is that the relationship is cumulative. Every morning you walk outside at the same time, move the same way, refill the feeder with the same familiar gestures, you are depositing into something. The birds are tracking it. And over time, the record of that consistency becomes the reason a bird chooses your yard over the 1-2 houses down that has an identical feeder but an unpredictable human. You have been building something, whether you knew it or not. The birds have been watching you do it the whole time. The sixth thing they notice is how you respond when something goes wrong in the yard. A Cooper's hawk comes through and clears the feeder in 2 seconds flat. Every bird vanishes. The yard goes silent in that specific, total way that means the threat is real and still close. What you do in that moment, whether you go inside, stand frozen, or move calmly to a different part of the yard, is logged. Birds returning to assess the situation after a predator pass will note where the human is, how the human is behaving, and whether the human's presence correlates with the danger resolving or continuing. A person who steps outside calmly after a hawk strike and simply goes about their business becomes, over time, a signal that the yard is settling back to safe. The birds return faster. The association between your presence and stability deepens. You are not just a food source to the animals in your yard. You are part of the environment they are reading constantly for information about whether this place is worth staying in. The seventh thing is the one most people carry with them longest after they hear it. Birds notice grief. Not in the way we experience it, not with the conceptual weight of loss that humans carry, but in the way that all highly social animals with strong sensory awareness notice when the behavioral signature of a familiar individual changes in ways that don't resolve quickly. Your pace slows. Your voice drops in frequency and volume. You appear at the feeder but stand there longer than usual, not moving with purpose. The entire profile of you, the movement file, the gaze patterns, the vocal register, the timing, shifts in ways that are measurable to animals that have been tracking those variables for months. What researchers working with corvids and long-term human subjects have documented is that birds in close habitual proximity to a grieving person often show increased investigative orientation toward that person. They position themselves closer, they hold their gaze longer. Whether this is comfort in any sense we would recognize, or simply the behavior of an animal resolving an anomaly in a familiar subject's profile, is something science is still working through carefully. What is not in question is that the bird is paying attention, that it has noticed something is different, and that it stays. If you've ever stood at your kitchen window in a hard season and felt something about a cardinal sitting unusually still on the branch just outside, if it felt like more than coincidence, if something in you went quiet in response to it, you were not wrong to feel that. You were not imagining the attention. The bird knew you were there. It had always known. And whatever it understood about the change in you, it did not leave. That is what 7 months of watching your face, your walk, your voice, your consistency, your eyes will produce in a wild animal that had no obligation to stay anywhere near you. It stayed because you became part of its world. Because you were predictable enough to trust, calm enough to approach, present enough to matter. The birds in your yard have been building a picture of you since the first morning you walked outside and filled that feeder. The picture is more complete than you knew. And the relationship it represents, quiet, unspoken, conducted entirely through presence and pattern, is one of the more honest ones most of us will ever be part of. If you're finding this helpful, please subscribe and turn on notifications. I upload new videos every week and I'd hate for you to miss one. Your support is what makes this channel possible, and it genuinely means the world to me. Thank you so much for being here until the very end. It means everything. If this video changed how you see the birds in your yard even a little, please share it with someone who loves nature. Check out the videos on your screen now. I think you'll love them. And subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one.